you can't hold your nose, in covering stories. I mean, I cover a lot of people in a lot of situations that I might find morally reprehensible or just, unpleasant. But that's life, and as long as I don't feel like I'm in a position of promoting it, and I never feel like I'm in a position of promoting it. I mean, we have to recognize what people are interested in, what they're talking about, what the trends are, and that's part of life. And so for me to highlight those things, I mean, I suppose if the question is, as a Christian, are you supposed to be of the world or in the world? And I guess I believe, I'm trying to remember the distinction now. It was a Sunday school lesson at one point, but I want to be the right one. I think you have to be. You can't. You can't. The power of your faith is being a part of the world and letting people see, you and your faith in action. And you can't do that by being, a recluse or living in. That's my personal feeling. So no, not really. That's challenged my faith. I mean, it can be an ugly world, but we talk about the bad we cover. I cover a lot of beautiful things and a lot of, and do a lot of stories about a lot of beautiful people. And I think that I just feel it kind of balances out. I mean, it's life, and we show it in all its forms and fashions. Well, see, I think that's sometimes an assumption that we often make that people, are not of faith. And you talk to, and that's not always the case. I think we have to be careful of that, trying to draw those lines of who the good people are and the bad people. The truth is, a lot of people don't bring their faith to the office, and I'm one. I don't discuss the specifics of my faith with people. I guess around Christmas and Hanukkah, people tend to show their faith perhaps a little more visibly. But I don't go around with the assumption that I'm the only one of faith. I think that's personally a dangerous route to go. And I think, and again, that gets to the thing, we can't be apart from, the world. I mean, the world is made up of all these different people with different thoughts and beliefs. I think you have to be willing to stand your ground at times. And that's why I talked about these kind of meetings, these editorial meetings where we have a chance to talk about stories. And I think at some point you have to point out, well, not everybody thinks that way, and there are people who might be offended by this story because of this, and maybe we should approach it from this direction. And it's just an awareness that not everyone is like me, and that's why it gets back to the whole diversity question of people bringing some different thoughts and reminding us that we're not all alike, and making sure that we're covering the stories from all angles. So I don't go around thinking that my colleagues are all sinners and that I'm a saint. I mean, I come from the point of view that we're all sinners, and if we weren't, then we wouldn't need faith, I guess. I should also tell you something else, that speaking of what you're learning here, and I see you have a TV station. What you're learning here is much more relevant to what we're doing in real life than it used to be. It used to be college, TV programs were great, but it wasn't quite what we did. Now, if you're doing nonlinear editing, that's what we do. You're shooting on DV tapes, that's what we're doing. I mean, it's not a huge bridge to the professional world. So what you learn here now is the kind of skills that will immediately transfer into most newsrooms in America, which is a really neat thing. And part of that's all part of the digital revolution, because we're all doing the same thing. One of the problems we see with a lot of young journalists is writing. It is so important to be able to write. Let me back up. At nightly news, if you watch NBC Nightly News on a given night, and time the stories, you're going to realize a lot of those packages are minute 30, 140, 135. I've had them give me like 115. Now try and take a complicated story and write it in a minute 15 seconds with sound bites. It's very, very difficult, and that's where the skill of being able to really, use an economy of words, create pictures with words. Writing is probably the most important thing we do, believe it or not. Pictures come easy, sound bites come easy. We got satellites, we can get anywhere in the world, but it's being able to do good storytelling is really not everybody can do it. And those who fail at the network, it's because they can't write. It's because they can't write, and they can't write quickly. Monday night, so I'm in Perugia, right? The verdict came down at, I have to do the arithmetic, it was around, I 9:30, 9:40, about 9:45. For me, nightly news came out at 12:30, but I wasn't freed up until I had basically. I think I started writing at about 10:30. 10:30. So the piece was going on the air in 2 hours. It had to be I had to write it, get my script to London where we were cutting it. But basically, I had in the real world, because you need time to edit, I had about 20 minutes to write that story, with all the sound bites, the translations, and all that. So you have to be able to do this, under a lot of pressure, and it's very difficult. And there's people blackberrying you, and they want you to use this sound bite and that sound bite. So probably the most important thing you learn in television is not how to focus that camera or not how to edit. It's how to write a good story, a good package, because that's where people will fail in newsrooms, because they get overwhelmed and they come back from a story at 4:15, and their story is supposed to be the top of the 5:30 news, the 6 o'clock, and they can't focus and write. So there's your plug.